Hey everyone, Jackson with Saints in the South here, and we are sharing with you a wonderful interview that we completed with Barry and Emily Bennett. Barry and Emily were both raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and both had plans of having a big family one day. After Barry's mission, they met, fell in love, and then were sealed in the Orlando, Florida temple. Little did they know that the Lord had his own plans of how those big family plans would be fulfilled. Now, this is a 2-hour interview, so break it up if you need to, but please listen to it all the way through as Barry and Emily travel down memory lane and share their ups and downs, their laughs and the cries, and ultimately their reliance upon the Lord through it all. It's a faith promoting story of how an eternal family can be built through adoption. Hope you enjoy it. You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, welcome everyone. Jackson with Saints in the South, and today we've got Barry and Emily Bennett with us. Mm-hmm. So good to have y'all here. Appreciate y'all coming in. So just want to kind of start out by getting to know both of you for a little bit. And it doesn't matter who goes first, but kind of tell us about your upbringing a little bit, maybe some interest, whether you were raised in the church or not, and so forth. So.
All right. Do you want to go
Ladies first?
Okay, of course. Like you said, my name's Emily, and I'm from Florida. I was born in Homestead, Florida. And then we moved to Lake City. I was still a little girl. I wasn't even in kindergarten yet when we moved. And so I was I was raised in Lake City, and I was raised in the church. My parents are both members of the church. They're both converts of the church. But they raised us all. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And so we grew up in the church, and mom drug us to church every Sunday.
Yes,
and dad, he had all the callings. He had he was bishop, branch president, high councilman, everything. And so mom had all the callings too growing up, but yeah, so
heavily involved in the church.
Yes, heavily involved in the church, heavenly and heavily.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly. That's good.
So yes, very heavily in the church. And they always made sure we went to all of our activities and growing up and everything. So yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was born here in Waycross, grew up in Waresboro. We still are in Waresboro.
Very good.
And was born into the church. Served a mission.
Where'd you serve?
In Washington, Spokane.
Okay.
Washington State.
Right. Very good. Come from a big family as well?
Yes. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. And the church goes back pretty far in my family too. I think the first members were in the early 1900s when the first missionaries come into the area around Axon. And
okay,
so we have a long line of members of the church.
Very good. Very good. So growing up in the church,
Mm-hmm.
Both of you are 5 children, right?
Yes.
And so
Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up also wanting to have your family of your own and everything?
Oh, absolutely. I was the youngest of 5, and I had always said I was going to have 5 kids,
Okay.
And then whenever I met Barry and he was the oldest of 5, I was like, hallelujah, because he's not like the only child or, anything like that, to where it's going to scare him half to death to be like, dang, 5 kids,
right,
but
be scared away.
So since he was the oldest of 5, I was like, perfect. I was like, we're going to have 5 kids, it's like all planned out,
Right.
So,
well, I never wanted to have an odd number of kids.
Okay.
Because I felt like I was kind of like the odd one out.
Right, I hear you.
Yeah.
So you were the youngest.
Youngest.
And where do you fit in the
I'm
5?
the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep,
Very good.
I got the spoiled one.
There, you're right. Yeah.
The baby, the
The
spoiled
baby.
one. Mhm.
So tell us how you did meet.
Okay. So, well, You want to tell a story? Do you want me to tell a story?
It was LDS chat.
Oh, I'm so proud of him.
Wow, LDS chat.
She thinks I'm embarrassed of it, but I'm not. I don't know
Oh,
why.
so
she
funny.
thinks-
For a couple of times, there was a couple of times he didn't really say we met through my friend Sally. That's what he said. But technically we did. I mean, we officially met on LDS chat,
We
and
met
it was
face to face with our friend Sally.
yeah.
Right.
And so the second time.
Okay.
And so a long time ago, almost 19 years ago, I don't even know if LDS chat is even
I've never. I was
thing
just going to
now.
ask him. I've never heard of LDS
so,
chat.
So the only reason why I knew about it was because I had a sister. I have two sisters, and how many brothers? Two brothers, two sisters,
Yeah,
two brothers. And so anyway, she met her husband off of LDS chat.
Okay.
And I just thought it was crazy, that she did. And he was from Utah, and he flew down and brought a ring, and they got engaged and got married in the temple. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And so, so I was like, I'm going to get on there. And I was like 18. I mean, just in it for fun.
Right.
I was definitely not looking for marriage or anything. And so I guess like in the chat room, there was like Southeast, like all the people could talk in this little room. It was like different little
regions,
areas, yellow regions. And so that's how we started talking. And then
I think you could like start your own room and invite people in it. But it was just a good way to meet members, because you know how it is. There's not a whole lot of members.
Not here in the South. You don't have a whole lot.
So if you didn't go to like a young single adult conference or something, it was hard to meet anybody.
And those are 4 hours away, Atlanta, Orlando and stuff. So
yeah. And so anyway, so we met, and just one thing led to another. We exchanged phone numbers, and we were texting, and we were actually talking, and then we started talking a lot. And then he's like, let's meet up kind of thing. And in my mind, I'm like, heck no, like you're gonna murder me, so I was just like, we had taken pictures, like just,
well,
headshots, send them to each other. And I'm like, this can be anybody, and I was like, just because it, worked out for my sister don't mean anything. So, so he wanted to meet. And so I was just like, okay, let's meet. So I told my parents, and we were going to meet at a gas station, and then he was going to follow me from the gas station to my house. Okay. My parents let me do that.
Wow.
Like
right with the stranger.
Yeah. So I go back sometimes, and I'm like, how dare you let me go to a gas station by myself?
No, it wasn't Dylan or Dustin. Hammond was with us. So my cousin was with us.
Okay. So that makes it even worse.
Right.
Two guys.
That's right. Yeah.
One girl.
That's right.
It's a lot better.
And so anyways, long story short, I went to the gas station, met them, and then they followed me to the house, and they were only there at the house for like 30 minutes, And then it was like a couple of days later after that, I was talking to Sally Musgrove, and she's in our ward, married to Curtis. And we knew each other. So I was from Lake City. So Valdosta was in Lake City Stake way back when. So that's how we met. So we've known each other since girls camp, since 12. And we stayed, best friends, since then. So we were talking, and she was like, so who you dating now? Are you seeing anybody? That kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually dating a guy from Waycross. His name is Barry. And she was like, no, Barry. And I was like, wait a minute.
And at the time, we were hanging out with Sally like all the time. She's one of my close friends at the time too.
Right.
So that was
so it was crazy because our paths just never crossed,
Right. Yeah.
It was like 45 minutes from my parents' house to her house, So I was at her house all the time. She was at my house all the time. And Barry was over at her house all the time with Curtis and everything. I'm like, how did we never meet?
Sounds like Sally kind of fell down on that best friend job.
I know. I got onto her. I slapped around a little bit for it. But anyways, so the second time Barry and I ever saw each other face to face, Sally had come with him.
Okay.
And so
so was it love at first sight?
Yes, we went over that discussion.
Right.
That question.
Yeah, that's right.
And I told him, I was like, I don't know how.
Skip that one.
I don't know how he felt, but I definitely. So it was a cool story because that second time I saw him, one of my sisters was pregnant at the time with her first child. And this, like I said, was forever ago. Like child that she was pregnant with is just gave birth to her own child. So it's crazy.
Wow, yeah.
You know, it's awesome. But anyway, so Barry had gotten up to use the bathroom, and Sharon was sitting next to me, and she was just, you know, her belly was so out there, and she was like, Gabby's kicking, you know, she's rolling around. So I laid my head onto her stomach, and I was feeling her move, and I was just rubbing it. And then I just said, I'm going to marry him, you know.
Wow.
And Ava was like, Sharon was just like, oh my gosh. She was like, I felt that. So it's like a little joke. Like we said, Gabby was the one that told me that I was going to marry him. And so, I mean,
that's pretty cool.
19th. So next week is our 19th anniversary.
Okay.
So
well,
19
happy
years
early
later.
anniversary. That's right. Very good.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's pretty cool. I don't know where I was. LDS chat and sending headshots and stuff. I didn't get it.
It was during dial-up too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool because when you type, if you were speaking to somebody, you could see the words like on your screen. If somebody else was typing, you could see
the words
while they were typing.
Really? So you couldn't like backspace and be like, no, I don't want to send that.
Well,
yeah, like already there.
Yeah, I mean, they can still see. You can still.
Yeah, right. But yeah,
it was. I wasn't a very good speller. I'm still not.
Wow.
But it was kind of funny.
So, so how long did you date before you got married? Before you popped the question and stuff?
It was a little over a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took her a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though she already knew, it still took her a while.
Yeah, it did.
Weird.
And that's another whole story. But
but I was ready. I was probably, I think I was.
Yeah, this is post mission.
Yeah, I was home for maybe 5 years at the time. So I had finally got to a point where I knew
he was ready to be serious.
Right. Yeah.
I knew she was the one, and let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that's great. That's pretty cool. So that's a good story. I don't think I've ever heard that story before.
Yeah, Barry doesn't like talking about it.
It's not true.
I'm totally joking with them.
So you get married in Orlando, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you get married in Orlando. So talk to me a little bit about the plan to have a family, have children, and so forth, and kind of go that direction.
Well,
I don't know did we plan on waiting, or I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember we had talked about trying to wait at least 2 years. You know, I remember, and I probably can remember that more just because me not getting pregnant, but we had planned for about 2 years after getting married just to kind of, you know, enjoy each other, you know, newlyweds, all that kind of stuff. And
just kind of get a good foundation and good job insurance.
Right.
Like
that.
Yeah. So we're trying to just play it smart. And then, but we knew we wanted kids. I mean, that was one of our first questions that we,
to each other
when we were just engaged. I mean, we didn't wait on that at all. So, and we had both talked about adoption too, actually. And Barry was actually the one that had brought it up.
I always felt like I would adopt one day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all had talked about adoption even before you got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And what's crazy is I never thought about it. I mean, not that I was against it. I just never thought about it, you know? And so when Barry had brought it up to me, I was like, heck yeah, I don't mind adopting. I was like, that'd be very cool, you know, or fostering or something, you know? So, that was the plan. We had planned on waiting 2 years and just hanging out, chilling, you know, like what Barry said, and then, getting all of our ducks in a row and then start trying to have a family and then eventually maybe adopting. So about 2 years.
Okay.
And then 2 years came up and
so y'all hit 2 years and then you're like, okay, so now we're ready to start. So y'all are sticking to your plan pretty much. Okay.
Yeah. And then so I was on birth control, and I had been on birth control since 9th grade. So I had always had problems, you know, it probably too much information. I don't know, but just kind of get it out there why I couldn't get pregnant. But they didn't diagnose me until Barry and I started trying to, you know, have kids, but I had endometriosis.
Okay.
And so that explained all of the pain and all of the just
Just
all
troubles and issues and
yes.
everything.
And I mean, since 6th grade, I mean, I had experienced it from the start. And then about 9th grade, I think, is whenever they finally diagnosed me. And so I had been on birth control for so long to try to help, regulate me and
Right.
help with the pain and all that. So I went off birth control after that 2-year mark. And then we started trying. And then I think we tried for about a year.
Probably a year before we
Yeah.
talked to the
Started
doctor and try to get
Mm-hmm.
checked out or whatever.
Yeah. And so they never said like the horrible phrase, like you'll never have children,
Okay.
like they never said that. So there was always that little bit of hope, but I mean, they just said it was going to be hard work,
Right.
it was just going to take a lot, lots of, having to start fertility, and surgeries and, all that. So we started that after a year, I think.
Yeah, they went at the first thing they decided to do is do surgery and clean the endometriosis out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I got a question for you real
Yeah.
quick. So in doing that and having that surgery, was there any risk at all in proceeding having and having that surgery at all?
I
Or is
mean,
it
there wasn't really any risk. It was just kind of cleaning it out. I mean, it was more of an exploratory surgery too, because you can't see
right?
endometriosis on a screen. You can see it. Well, I mean, they knew I had it because I had like cysts that were called endometriomas, and so once they went in, then they were able to see the extent of the actual endometriosis.
and she needed it either
so-
way.
Okay.
Right. So I guess,
just to
I
help
guess
with the pain and
Right,
cramp
okay.
and all that she experienced every month.
there could have been a risk, but I mean, not really. I mean, it just depends. I mean, you have all your organs in there, my fallopian tubes, all that kind of stuff, so they didn't know how bad it was going to be once they got in there.
Okay.
And so, fortunately it was bad, but they were able to get it all out, and it was fine. And so after that first surgery, we started fertility, and I had to do like a round of shots, I think, for like 6 months or something like that. And then, but then that was it. Then we started trying on our own.
And they did the artificial insemination a couple times.
Well, we did
We
that.
don't want to get into that experience.
Yeah. Well, that was later on.
Horrible
Because
experience.
it took
No.
3 surgeries. So like I had that first surgery, and then did the shots and all, and then nothing worked. We kept trying and didn't get pregnant. And then we found a different doctor, because that doctor, I was seeing a doctor in Gainesville, Florida, at Shands or at UF. And then he actually retired. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to start all over again.
Wow, right.
So we found another doctor, and then had surgery. And then we didn't have any luck. It was just basically like, clean me out. And they kind of explained it like, once the endometriosis was not there and my fallopian tubes were clear, like they ran dye to make sure everything was flowing right, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And once that was it, then that was it. Then we would just try on our own. There was no like any kind of fertility pills or
Gotcha.
medication or anything like
Yeah,
that.
they said, I mean, everything looked good. There's no
Mhm.
reason why we shouldn't
Shouldn't be able to have.
Right.
Okay.
be able to get.
So then I started talking to Jessica Moore, and then she was the one that referred us to the same doctor she had used, Dr. Winslow in Jacksonville. And so he was the one that we did the actual fertility with, where I was on the medication, I was on
Right.
shots, and then we didn't do in vitro, we did the artificial insemination, and we did it 3 times. And so that was my final surgery with him. And so basically the same thing, kind of clean me out, get me ready for whatever. And then we started the medicine, started the shots. And then we tried 3 separate times, and we had to go there for the insemination. And he was such a funny doctor. I mean, he was just so, excited. And, every time I had eggs, he was just like,
Right.
oh my gosh, look at those
he-
fat, juicy eggs. Like he was just so excited. And
he loved his job. it sounds
yes,
like,
he
yeah.
loved his job. And so we were excited. So him, having the good spirits and, attitude and all, and he was so good with Barry and everything. And so it helped us,
Right.
but the whole time he was like, don't stress. He asked me if I had a stressful job, and I was like, are you kidding? And so anyways, he was just like, and I was teaching seminary at the time. And so I think I was teaching, it had been like a year. And so I went to the bishop and I was like, I might be punished for this, but I don't know if I could teach anymore because I'm trying to get pregnant
Right, yeah.
and it's stressful. And, so I even asked for a lighter workload at work and, just different things. Like I was really trying to just be stress-free. And
having Barry,
It's
you
not her
bring you,
nature.
cook you
Yeah.
food and all this.
It's not in her nature
It's
to
not
be
her nature to be
chill,
right.
so-
no, I mean, I promise you, even now, it's like I worry over the smallest
Right.
things. And so anyways, we each time, like the first time we were just so hopeful and it didn't work. And then he was like, all right, no big deal. He's like, let's do it again. So we tried the second time. And he was hopeful, talked about my eggs, all that kind of stuff. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. And then it didn't work out. So we were on our third try. And I was just like, it's not going to work. Cause I was like, I'm so stressed.
And that's
like,
stressing you out, especially on the third time. That's
Yes.
stress enough by
Yes.
itself.
Yeah,
And
it was such highs and lows too.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Just a
get,
huge roller
you're
coaster.
so excited for a month and then the letdown,
Right.
Mhm.
and then they'll give it like a month or two and then try again. So you're all excited again, and then another letdown. And
Yeah.
but
So that third try was basically, he said he only liked to do 3 tries. And he said that for us, he would do a 4th time. And I was like, no, I was like, we're fine at the 3. And then around that time is actually when Barry had met Ava, our oldest daughter.
Right.
And so another part of the
so
story.
was this 5 years after we got married, or 5 years into trying to have a kid, or to get?
I think it was trying, because Ava
So it was a long process. It was
Yeah.
over probably 5 years that
Right.
just struggling with
Mhm.
trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So you're 5 years into your marriage at
Mhm.
this point. Okay.
Yeah. And so another little tidbit to the story is my oldest brother and his wife, they actually adopted 2 little kids, and they're actually Ava's biological brother and sister. And so that's how Ava was brought into the picture. And
Okay.
so Barry, I think they were building a house at the time, and Barry had gone down there one weekend by himself. We didn't go. Me and the kids.
You're right.
I didn't go. We had no kids then. I didn't go for some reason. And so he's just like, there's a little girl here and I'm going to bring her home. And I was like, you're crazy.
So they had already, so Bobby and Susie had already had Ben, which is a little boy, and he was maybe 2 years old, I guess.
I
They
don't
had
know.
him like off and on,
Okay.
And then
That's kind of like foster parents.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
and so they when I was there, they had brought Eliza home like straight from the hospital. Like the mother was unfit to keep the child, so they had a newborn there while I was there helping, and I would just tease
Mhm.
Emily,
Yeah.
that was get ready because I'm bringing this
Bringing a baby home.
Right. Oh, so it was Eliza. My bad.
Yeah.
So it was Eliza. It wasn't Ava.
Not Ava. Okay.
It was Eliza.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. So it was actually Eliza. And then, but they were just like, no, she's ours, basically. Like, you can't have this baby kind of
Right.
thing. Well, then he did meet Ava at some point in time without me. And so
they were through this whole time, they were going through the adoption process with Ben and Eliza,
Mhm.
while they were still going through that, because it takes several years.
Right.
Ava was born, so the lady had another baby and she was unfit to keep it, and so they brought that baby also home. straight
Yeah.
from the hospital,
Yeah,
which
Susie-
was Ava.
That was Ava.
Right,
And they
yeah.
called her Peanut at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So Susie brought her straight home from the hospital.
Okay.
She looked
Mhm.
like a little boiled peanut.
Okay.
Wrapped in a blanket.
So all right. So let me ask you this. So this is about 5 years in,
Mhm.
right? Okay. So where are y'all as far as your acceptance of the situation? How is your faith going? Are you like are you questioning? Are you
Mhm.
questioning Heavenly Father? So talk to me a little bit about that side
Yeah.
of it.
I'll go first because I know she'll probably get emotional during this too. And I'll go before I get too emotional. But I mean, after we had been through all those struggles, I always felt like it would work out. But Emily was always worst case scenario and stress. And I try to always be like the level headed one. And I'm just more laid back, more relaxed, I guess. And I just knew it would all work out. And so I was ready to adopt as soon as we knew that probably wasn't going to happen. I was like, all right, I'm ready to adopt. But it took her, even after Bobby and Susie was going through the process, she still wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we were on, like I said, we were on that last insemination. It was our third insemination. So it was like the week before that last insemination when I met Ava.
Okay.
And so, anyways, their oldest son, he is married now and in the bishopric back home. But when he turned 8, he obviously he was getting baptized. And so we were going down there for the baptism
To Bobby and Susie.
to back home to Lake City.
Okay.
And it was in the Lake Butler ward. And that was my home ward. And so we went down there that weekend, and it was on a Sunday, and it was Sunday evening when he got baptized. And so we were there, and I think I gave a talk at his baptism. And so when I went up there, I could see one of our longtime friends sitting in the back holding a baby. And the whole time giving that talk, all I focused on was that baby. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I did not want to see that baby.
Right.
And so, so I got done with the talk, and I walked, we were done. After everything got done, I went out into the foyer, and they were having root beer floats and everything. And, Barry and Susie, and I think Bobby and my mom, and I'm not for sure who else was in there, still in the chapel, and everybody had already went out to the gym to have their floats and everything. And I'm sitting in the foyer, and I was like, I am not walking in there. I was like, I'm not walking into that chapel.
Because I'd already been plotting. We'd
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Susie
That's right.
And so they were all oohing and awing at the baby and everything. And not that I was being mean or,
Right, yeah.
it was just kind of like, I'm just not ready. Like, I just need to be focused for next week and everything. So I started walking down. This is why he said I was going to get emotional, because there's only been a couple of times, actually one other time before this time, I felt the Holy Ghost so strong. And like he spoke to me out loud. And so I was walking down the hall, heading to the gym, and I heard someone tell me to stop. And I thought it was Barry. And no, and I kept going. I was just like, I don't want to hear it. I said, I don't want to hear it. And I didn't want to fight. Not that we were going to fight or anything, but it was just like, I just was not ready for it.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Just emotionally,
yes, yeah.
I was just shot, and so I kept going, and then I heard stop again, like loud and clear. And so I turned around and I was like, Barry, so I was going to like scold him a little bit, like, really, and he wasn't there. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was just like, and it just hit me. And I was like, and then I just started crying a little bit, and I was like, are you serious, Heavenly Father? I was like, okay, so I went into the chapel, and then I started walking up there, and it was like, they like all parted like a curtain, when they saw me walking up there. And I don't even know who was holding Ava, but I just remember they just like, do you want to hold her? And I was like, absolutely. And, and they just put her in my arms. And I swear it was like, if you can imagine the best like 4th of July fireworks
Fireworks, that's
celebration,
right, yeah, just,
that was it in my chest. Like it was like I thought I was going to explode whenever I held her.
Wow.
And so and I just cried. I cried and I cried. And then no one held her the rest of the night. You know, I was like, don't touch my baby kind of thing. And so on the way home, I had called my brother and we had to drive home that night. It was a Sunday and we both had to get to work, and it's about a 2-hour drive from my home to here. And so I called and I was like, what do I need to do to make her mine?
Right.
I was just like, I will do anything. I was like, she is my child. And so, so then after I said that, and I was like, well, dang, I'm crazy. Cause what if I get pregnant next
right,
week?
exactly. Yeah,
You
what if
know,
it takes?
so, and my mom was just kind of like, well, just be like you're having twins, you know? So, and we did end up with twins, but anyways, I was just kind of like, okay. And so one thing led to another, and we just started, you know, the adoption process. So,
So how old was Ava at that time?
she was, I think, was only 3 weeks old.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was just a tiny
Yeah.
little baby, you know, so, yeah. And she'll be 14 in
Wow.
January.
Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
So your little plot there came together there.
Yeah,
Yes.
it worked out.
Yeah. And I didn't get pregnant.
Had to get the spirit
And I didn't
involved.
get pregnant. So that next week we went and we were hopeful, you know, even after seeing Ava and everything. And I just knew it was going to work. Like I just felt so good about it. And of course the doctor did, you know, he was so excited, and we just absolutely knew for sure it was going to work, and it didn't. And he was very surprised. He was just like, honestly, he said, I don't know why. He was like, could each time you were ready,
Right.
you know, he was like, I really don't have an explanation for it. You know, he's like, I don't know why you did not get pregnant. And I just told him, I was like, well, I do, you know, I was just like, it's fine. And so, and it was fine. Like I was, well, I say I was fine, but I wasn't, but I was excited about Ava, you know, and I was excited to get that started. So
at what point do you get to, because I guess you have to take her in as a foster child in the beginning, right?
Right.
And then, so at what point do you actually get to take her home to start that process?
I think, wasn't she maybe 6 weeks old when we first brought her home?
No, she was like 6 months old.
Oh no, we met her when she was 6 weeks.
No, she was 3 weeks old when we met her.
Yeah.
But so the whole thing with that was we had to start from scratch. And we honestly can't have any credit for anything to do with Ava as far as the adoption process goes, because my brother Bobby and Susie, they had already started everything with Ben and Eliza. And so they were going through all of that, and they had Ava the whole time. And so legally Ava could not live with us. Like she just couldn't come home with us. They were fostering her. And we lived in Georgia, they lived in Florida, and couldn't cross state line, all that kind of stuff. And so they pretty much did everything.
Yeah, we owed them a lot
with Ava, because
practically raised her for the first 6 months of her life.
Yeah. And so I joke with Ava too. Now I'll say, ask your other mama. I'm talking about Susie. I'm like, I'm going to send you to your other mama's house. You know, you better straighten up. But it was just a hassle, because there's a lot. Obviously we didn't know what to expect. And boy, it was a ton trying to be foster parents. And you had foster classes that we had to go to. We had, when I say mounds of paperwork, it was just constant. I mean, it wasn't just a couple of stapled papers. It was mounds of paperwork that we had to do. And also because we lived in Georgia trying to adopt in Florida. So we had to go through everything through Florida. And then they had to transfer everything to Georgia because we lived in Georgia. So it was just like double the work.
Wow.
And so we were filling out paperwork for Florida, filling out paperwork for Georgia. And and so anyways, so it come time for Bobby and Susie to adopt Ben and Eliza, and they were still fostering Ava. And we were nowhere ready to have her come into, we still had like another year and a half, I think, before she could actually live with us, before our paperwork was done.
Man.
And so anyways, I was struggling with that because I was so excited for them to adopt, Ben and Eliza, but then Ava was still there. Not that she was, she was living with Bobby and Susie, and every single weekend I was down there. Like, even if Barry couldn't come, I drove down there 2 hours every weekend. Anytime I had a day off, anything, I was going down there, being with her. And I went all the time anyways to see my family and my parents, but I made sure I was there every weekend. And so it wasn't anything like that. It was just like, I just felt like,
well, you got that. I think of bonding.
Yes.
That bonding time, those early years and
Yeah.
everything and stuff.
So I was just having such a hard time. And I think one of the questions was like, how did you see God's hand in it? And I know I'm kind of jumping towards that, but that was one of the things. I mean, it was like a miracle, because I was struggling and Barry was struggling, and we wanted her to live with us, but, we were just like, how can we do this? And just having to wait for another year and a half or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to go crazy. I was like, yeah, I'll keep going down there every weekend. I was like, no problem. I'll do whatever it takes. But I was like, I want her in our house, in our home. And so anyways, we get a phone call one day from their attorney, which she turned around and was our attorney, and her name was Mary Kay, and she was a godsend. I mean, she was literally the best attorney that we could even ask for. And so she called me up one day and she said, hey, she was like, I have an idea, because she knew how bad we wanted to go ahead and get her and not wait. And plus there was other situations going on where she could be placed with other family members. And not that that's a bad thing to be placed with other family members, but it was like, we knew she was our child and we wanted her, And so, and I was just like, we have to have her right now. It's like, whatever you got that's legal, we will do it, So she said, well, why don't you let your brother and sister-in-law adopt her, and then you can adopt her from your brother? And I was like, that's legal? And she was like, yeah. She was like, why not? And I was just like, well, you're our attorney. So yeah, I was like, we will do that right now. So they did. So Bobby and Susie adopted Ava the same day they adopted Ben and Eliza, and they adopted her as Ava Bennett, not Ava Cabral, which is my maiden name. And so it was like, I mean, it was just done.
And then maybe, was it like the next week or the next day or the same day that we adopted Ava? I can't remember.
I honestly don't know. I'm so sorry.
But no, that's fine.
But maybe Bobby and Susie knows, but I don't know.
It was very
basically
close. Maybe a couple weeks later. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but yeah. So Bobby and Susie had been going through the adoption process for a year and a half, 2 years. I'm not sure. A long time.
Yeah.
Because they were going, I think they had started it with Ben. That was the first little boy that they had. And then while they were going through the process with him, they had Eliza. So they added her to the whole process. And then Ava came along. What, are they a year apart?
Yes.
So that whole time they were trying to adopt the first two kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have older kids already.
Yeah.
So when the third child came along, they probably would have took Ava too if we wouldn't have been in the picture.
Right.
Yeah. Susie said that she always felt like, I mean, she loved Ava, and she absolutely has like the best bond with her. And so does my brother and their oldest kids, because they were there with her. And, but she just knew, she belonged somewhere else,
Heavenly Father had other plans.
Yeah. And so
they already had 3 kids, and they had
2, had Eli and Gracie. And then
so Ben's older than,
well, I mean, Ben. Yeah. I mean, I thought you were talking about Susie naturally.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
Wow.
but so yeah, so that's what we did. And then I just went up to the Social Security and didn't have to do anything major. It was just like changing the parents' names because her name was Ava Bennett already. So we didn't have to do any kind of crazy paperwork or anything.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy how, I mean, how's your attorney just,
yeah,
she just just a light kind of clicked on or something for her. And just
right. So yeah, so Heavenly Father was definitely looking out for
pulling
us
some
on
strings.
that one.
That's right. Yeah. Giving some promptings.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. So Ava comes home with you there. So talk about the remaining three.
Yeah.
So you got
so it was exactly, well, I don't want to say exactly, but it was a year later with Aaron. And we were actually on our way to a Ware County game here, football game. And we were walking out the door, and Ava, is a little girl. She was all dressed up, green and gold, so we were leaving, and I get a phone call, and it was from Ava's old caseworker that we had through that whole process. And she said, I have a little boy that needs to be adopted. And I was like, what? I was like, we're heading to a football game, and so
and I don't mean to interrupt you. So this is a year later?
A year later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And so she said that it was the uncle to Ava.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, and he was just a little baby too. I mean, I think he was just like 3 or 4 months old. I mean, he was little, and he was in a foster home, and he had already been in like 3 or 4 foster homes himself. Wow. And so she was just like, but his, and I was like, well, why did you call us? Like,
right.
Not mean anything bad, but I was just curious. I was like, what made you think of us? I mean, I know we have Ava. And she was just like, well, actually his mom wants you guys to have him. And I was like, oh, okay. And to a little back history on that, we know the family. So like, Aaron and the twins are, biologic, like they had the same biological mother.
Okay.
And, so their biological mother had a daughter who is Ava's biological mother.
Okay.
So that's how that all is. Well, they, Aaron and the twins' biological mother, they're members of the church, just inactive, and they were in my home ward. And so I was just getting out of Young Women's when Ava's biological mom was going into Young Women's. And so, so we know them,
Right.
so anyway, she was just like, she wants you guys to have them. And I said, well, I need to get back with you on that. It's like, we need to pray and,
and we got a football game to go to.
And we're like,
we got more important things right now.
So, so all on the way to the football game, I was just like, I was speechless.
Yeah, I imagine
like,
that's,
oh my gosh, because we honestly, I mean, we went to not being able to have kids to we have a kid, and now we possibly can have another kid. And I'm like, and it's a boy, and we have a girl. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is, like it was so cool because we could have the chance to have a boy and a girl.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm just like, who calls and like, hey, you want a kid?
Out of the blue.
Like, so it was kind of neat. And
and as soon as I found out, it was like, okay, I guess we're having a boy.
Yeah.
Had y'all thought about a future adoption at any point?
I mean, honestly, I didn't. I mean, I knew Bobby and Susie had been in Eliza, they had 2.
Right.
But I mean, I just thought
really
it was just going to be Ava.
Gotcha.
I just thought she was going to be an only child. And she had, just completely healed me. Like that giant hole that was in my heart. Like it was just, she just filled it up. And that was it. I was just like, I don't need another kid. I was just like, I'm fine with one, and I was very thankful for that. I mean, I've always wanted 5 kids, and I don't know where we're going to get the 5th,
right?
Because we only have 4.
But we actually have an announcement. Our parents don't even know, or we're getting a girl in a couple weeks.
A puppy.
Okay, I'm like,
A
well,
puppy.
so we got major announcement breaking on here.
It's a puppy.
That'll be number 5.
There you go. go.
That's funny. I didn't think it was going to be 4-legged and furry, but
That's funny. So mentioning the hole that you felt. So some when we face these trials, big trials and stuff in our lives, some people turn away from Heavenly Father and maybe try and blame and why me and so forth. Other people turn into Heavenly Father.
Right.
Where did y'all find yourselves on that faith spectrum, so to speak?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I always felt it would work out, and he would provide a way.
Right.
He was the perfect one in our relationship during this.
No, but I mean, my stress came from her stress and trying to help her to deal with it and try to comfort her.
Well, I mean, to be honest and to try to help others, that's why I just want to be honest. But I did question, like in the very beginning, way back when we were first trying, and they told me that it was going to be hard and that I was going to have to do all the above and everything. And I just sat back and I was like, are you kidding me? Because I was the youngest of 5. And, I got to watch, my brothers and sisters get married and have their own families. And I was just so excited and just watching that. And so it was really hard. I mean, it was, you go ahead.
Yeah. So and also kind of just from the outside looking in, you've also got there's a big group of friends of us, all around the same age, and everybody around you are having children.
Right.
And,
exactly. So it was so for about a year, I had myself a big old fat pity party like every day.
Right.
Like, I mean, for a solid year, I know that to be true. And I hated everybody. Like I hated everybody. Yes. I hated everything. I hated Barry sometimes. Like I was just mean and hateful for about a year.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. But anyways, like I just, I wasn't going to the baby showers. I hated seeing pregnant women. I hated I hated everything. And it was really hard, and I was worried about, it's trying so hard to keep it together, but I was worried about Barry, because, and his family, like, I just felt like I was like a big disappointment, and his sisters were having kids and I was just so excited to be a part of that. And I was worried about Barry, not being able to have his own children, and so it was stressful. And I was worried if he, didn't love me, it was just like all these things. And I had, there's actually 2 couples that I knew personally that struggle with the same things, and they got a divorce over it,
Wow.
So I was worried that, and Barry never showed that. I mean, he was always there. I mean, he never, showed any kind of ill feelings or anything. Like he was always picking me up off the floor, always, and, but I was just worried about all that. And so I definitely questioned, but, for about a year, and my heart had turned so like cold and it was, stone, like there was no, good heart left in me. And I could just feel myself kind of slipping away, and, not questioning the gospel, if it was true or not, but it was just like, I just didn't want to be a part of it,
right.
And, I still went to church, but I was just like a robot, I just did it because Barry was going to church, and, and I never doubted the gospel. And I don't know how to explain it. It was just, I was just in a dark place,
right.
Yeah. And like you said, seeing everybody at church, coming in with pregnant bellies and holding babies and everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was like, here we go again. And, so it was tough, but, I remember there was a book by Sherry Dew. And gosh, I absolutely love her.
She's awesome.
And I got the chance to hear her at a timeout for women before we were married, but it was before we were trying to have kids. So I didn't know, about my situation or anything then. And I just loved her, but I'm not a reader. I mean, I can read, but I just don't read books, And so we were at his parents' house one day, and so I was just skimming through her books on her bookshelf, and I saw a book. It's by Sherry Dew, and it caught my eye, and I was like, "Oh, I love her." And I was like, "I wonder what this book's about." So I got it, and I think it was called. Let me think about it. Oh shoot, I think it's like "No One Can Take Your Place." That's what it was called. "No One Can Take Your Place." And so I asked Janice, I was like, "Can I borrow this?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." So I read it, and I kid you not, I don't even know if Barry knows this, if you even knew if I read it, but Sherry like saved me. Like she literally like pulled me up out of the grave that I was in, and I was just patting the dirt on top of me, And I remember thinking, I was like, she's my best friend and she don't even know it.
Right.
It's like, I want to call her up and be like, can I come fly out there, see you? You can give me some live pointers, slap me around for being so hateful, But anyway, she had talked about in the book, and it was for men and women, but mainly for women. And just talking about, she doesn't have any children. So I was able to relate to that.
Right.
And she just said something like this whole section about, women are mothers, and it said something like, the word mother has many layers or something like that. I can't remember. It's been forever ago since I read it, but that literally is what helped me turn around. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I just pray to Heavenly Father. I was like, please forgive me for being so mean and having these horrible thoughts about these pregnant women, and all the baby showers I didn't go to, and not being happy for anybody. And, so I just felt so ashamed, because I was like, I'm not that person, and so and I mean, even my sister-in-laws were getting pregnant. And I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, like I am the worst person in the world.
I think your reaction to that is perfectly normal. And I think probably most women, I would think, would have the pretty similar reactions and everything and stuff.
Right.
So, just growing up in the church, it's your whole life is based around having a family.
Right.
And then when you get to a point where you feel like you may not have that, it's hard, especially for a woman that, she's dreamed since she was 11 or 12 or whatever, that she'll have a baby,
Yeah. So I was really thankful for that book. And then it was like a light switch. Like I just totally just came out of it and slapped myself silly. And I was just like, okay, I was like, I can be a mother. And I had nieces and nephews, and if you ask them right now, I'm their favorite aunt, like no joke. And so I really, took the whole aunt role to the extreme. Like I was just like, I want to be there for them. I want to make sure they know I'm proud of them. Like I love them. And I was the youngest, so I was like still kind of cool, and so I just wanted to, be that mother to them, as an aunt. And so, and even now I still try to tell all of them that I'm proud of them and all their accomplishments and everything. So anyway, so I was just like, dadgummit, I am a mom, so, and then I was like the first ones at baby showers with the best gift. And, I was the one hosting the baby showers, and I was just so excited when I saw someone walk in pregnant. I'm like, can I rub your belly? So, and of course, I mean, there's still those emotions that were there every now and then. I mean, we can't get away. We can't turn off emotions, but it was just learning how to I don't know how to say it, like not accept it, but just be okay with it.
Just know that the Lord had another plan.
Right.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's where every single individual in this life, you get to a point and then you have to make a choice.
Mhm.
And that's what you did, is that
Right.
you made a choice. You took Sherry Dew's book, the inspiration that it
Mhm.
provided you, and you made a choice
Right.
to turn kind of back in,
Mhm.
to the spiritual things, and not to turn into the hate side or what
Right.
have you.
Right. And
things side.
I think back on that every now and then, because I'm just like, what would have happened if I didn't, and I think about my friends that, had the divorce and things, and they're not active in church,
Right.
and I feel for them and I hurt for them because I was there, and I'm just like, that could have been me, Barry and I, no telling,
Right.
and then to think of our children that we have, what would have happened to them, so it's like, it's so important to just try as hard as you can, even though it's, you can be rock bottom like me. I mean, I was on the floor all the time, crying all the time, and just mad at the world and just mad at everything. And it could have been like that forever, so.
So let me ask Barry. So Barry, seeing your wife, seeing her struggle and everything like that, did you, how was, and she said that, I mean, that you were there 100% and everything. Did you get like worried, or did you worry about her, maybe her spiritual side or anything like that? Or did you just kind of full steam ahead and say you were going to be there, no matter what?
I mean, it was definitely hard, but I can't really remember all the specifics, but at times I struggled too, because she was, struggling. It's
Right.
hard not to, it's hard to stay upbeat and comfort
all
her.
the time. Absolutely.
Right. So of course that got me down too.
Right.
But I don't know. I would always tell her, I was like, it'll work. It's going to work out.
Yeah.
I just knew that, and I just couldn't get it across to her, and she had to, get that answer on her own.
Yeah.
Well,
that gets back to the I think all the way back to, you said, as how young, or you say in your teenage years or what have you, you kind of had the feeling that you would have been eventually adopt at some point in your life, right?
Yeah, as far back as I can remember. I guess when I got to the age where I started thinking about a family, maybe 17, 18, and I just always felt like we'd adopt one day.
Right. So the twins.
Yes.
How do they get into the picture?
So they are Aaron's biological sisters. Right. And so the grandmother was the one that had them, and she had basically said, kind of like, with Aaron, do you guys want some twins?
So they just called you up too.
Yeah. And actually, I think it kind of went through Bobby and Susie, because she lived in Lake Butler, and I'm not for sure where I think she's still in Lake Butler. And so it kind of went through Bobby and Susie, and so we're just kind of like, oh my gosh. It's just like, okay. And so
Susie was like, hey, come down and meet the twins.
Right.
Yeah. And so and there was a couple of times that we had gone down there, like they were about 2 or 3 weeks old when we first went down there, and we were supposed to meet up with her. We went to her apartment to meet the babies, and she wasn't there, and she had went off somewhere, like another state or something, and she had changed her mind, but she didn't tell us about that. So of course, like we had to pray about it, and we felt good. We went down there, and then that happened. And so of course it's the whole emotional thing. And I'm just like, we're not talking about, do you want a bag of candy or anything? It's like children,
Right.
So I was just like, oh my gosh,
two of them,
two, not just one.
And two, for me, it was the first two. It was like easy. I mean, we knew like right off the bat, yes, we'll take them. We want them. We want to love them. But then you get a call for twins, and they were babies.
Wow.
And you're like, I guess the selfish side comes out. You're like, I'm kind of comfortable with just
That's
having
right.
2 kids,
Right,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
She can hold one, I can hold one, and we can go and do
Right,
whatever
exactly.
we want to.
Yeah.
With 4, our whole life is going to
Right.
change.
Yeah.
You know, so
So anyway, so we went down there, and anyways, but long story short, we finally got to get there, and we finally met them. I think there were 3 months old the day we met them, and the very next day they turned 4 months.
Okay.
And so but when we got there, I didn't really know the situation. I wasn't, so Ava was a private adoption. So, cause
Right.
Bobby and Susie adopted, and we turn around. Aaron was a child of the state, meaning that he was already in foster care. So Bobby and Susie basically did Ava's adoption for us. And we just kind of said,
Right.
we'll take her from you now. And then Aaron, it was, fairly, I don't want to say easy, because nothing in the system like that is easy,
Right.
but it was, it was doable, because he was already in foster care. He was a child of the state. And so basically everything is just kind of done for us. We just show up and everything.
Of course it's always, whenever you go through an adoption, it's up and down, because
right.
I think everything's smooth one minute, and the next, there's like doubts,
Another roadblock and stuff.
right. And just the state of Florida is hard. It took maybe 1.5 2 years to go through the whole process, even though there was no parents in the picture.
Wow.
It's crazy. And Georgia is even harder than that.
Golly.
And so when it really worked out, the Lord had prepared us to have Aaron, because my brother and his wife, Lance and Emily, they were going through adoption. I think they were just fostering at the time,
And this is another,
I can't remember if they had already adopted, but they were a foster home, and so they were fostering kids. So when we started with Aaron, we just transferred him from a Florida adoption home into a Georgia adoption home with my brother and his wife.
Okay.
So
yeah, that is a good point. He brought that up.
So I mean, we feel like we owe them a lot too,
right?
Right,
Because that was another, how'd you see God's hand in
for a
it?
few months?
Yeah, and that is true. Like, and so I know we are totally off
No, you're good.
subject.
You're
You
good.
might have to
No, you're
hit the
good.
rewind
It's
button,
fine.
because I totally forgot about that. And that's something I did want to bring up, because whenever I was reading over the questions, and I was gonna make notes and everything, I was like, no,
It's
I got
fine.
it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm glad he brought that up, because talking about seeing God's hand in everything, because he was there through all of it, obviously. But so when we adopted Ava, we quit all of our paperwork to be foster parents, because it was a private adoption.
Right. Okay.
So we just kind of like washed
Yeah,
our hands and
right.
we're like, hallelujah, we don't have to do any of that. And so so when Aaron came around, we had to finish, because he was in foster care. So we
Right.
had to be foster parents in order to adopt him.
Right.
And we really
so-
saw the struggles that we didn't understand at the time when we got Ava, but we really saw the struggles that Bobby and Susie went through.
Right.
So they were able to comfort us, and
Yeah, and
Lance
they
and Emily
helped
were going
us.
through it at the same time, so they were able to comfort
Right.
us.
And we got the same attorney, Mary Kay, that we had with Ava for Aaron. And so she was just, like I said, she literally is golden. And so that was just a blessing, because we're just like, oh my gosh, we have to finish all this paperwork again. I was like, I'm gonna go crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, why is it so hard? So anyway, so instead of him being in Florida at strangers' houses, because like with Ava, it was great because she was at my brother's house.
Right.
And so at a stranger's house, I'm like, I can't just show up at a stranger's home and be like, hey, I'm here to see my son.
Right.
And so it was a blessing that Lance and Emily were going through the same thing at the same time. And they had space, I think, just for one more kid. And that was Aaron, and they just so graciously opened up their home. And Emily's mom played a big part in that too. Emily's mom helped out all the time.
Yeah. So
And
she still has a special bond with Aaron too.
yes, Aaron absolutely loves her. And Aaron loves,
even though he was not even.
And they had a
one.
little girl, their daughter Lucy, that they were fostering, which since then she's been adopted, but she was about the same age as Aaron. I think they're just like a few months apart, I think. And so they bonded. And so Lucy and Aaron has
Wow.
like such a bond, special little cousins. And so it just, like you said, the Heavenly Father's hand was
Everything's
just,
kind of fitting,
yeah.
fitting together.
and Lance and Emily literally lived like right down the road from us. So I was able to, he couldn't live with us. He couldn't
Right.
spend the night with us, nothing like that legally. And so I was, down at Emily's house all the time. I was like, Emily, I'm coming over,
Right.
so.
Remind me, and we should have talked about this before, but was it with Ava or Aaron where the judge told us to take the baby home with us and told the lawyers just to work it out?
Oh, it was with Ava. And so
I guess the laws are so strict.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah,
not supposed to leave the county or anything if you're not.
it was to babysit her, though. It was Bobby and Susie were going on vacation and they needed a babysitter for just one of their kids.
Right.
And that's how it was. And I was there that day for that court
Yeah.
hearing.
So we go to court and we're trying. And the lawyers were like, no, there's no way that you can't do this. The laws say you cannot take the baby to Georgia. You can't. And, we went in front of the judge and it was Susie's dad was our lawyer, right?
He was there. Yeah.
Anyway,
but I can't remember all those details though.
So, we presented the case or whatever to the judge and say, look, this is Barry and Emily. They want to adopt this baby. They've already started bonding with the baby. Emily's brother and his wife has her. They're going through the adoption process, whatever. And the judge was like, take her home. And the lawyers, the state lawyers was like, Judge, we can't do that. He's like, y'all are smart people. He said, y'all figure it out.
Yes.
They're going home with this baby.
And
today.
another funny little thing to that too is probably, I don't even know. It was just funny because I mean, I've never been in court,
Right.
I had to testify to a robbery that happened with me and my dad, but it was just like a short come in, that's them leave. So I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know you're not allowed to approach the judge. I didn't know you're not allowed to do any of that. And so when I was there, they were just like, he was just like, who's Emily, and so I stood up and I was like, hey, judge. And he was just like, oh, so, your name's, Emily Bennett. I was like, yes, sir. And I walked up there to shake his hand. I was like, nice to meet you. And they're like, whoa, and the cop or whatever he is.
Like, hold up.
Yeah, I thought he was just gonna, he was all coming up to me. I was like, hold up. I'm like, what's happening?
And the judge started laughing.
And so the judge started laughing. And so I told Barry, I was like, I swear I won him over whenever that happened because he was just like, this girl's gonna bust up in here and shake my hand.
and just going through it, and especially looking back, you can just see where the Lord had his hand in just leading and guiding you and letting you go through the struggles so you could, so we could grow closer together, but also, grow closer to the children. And
yeah,
it's crazy.
It is. And I don't even know where we were before we had to go back. I think we were talking about the twins.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Being able to said it's the grandmother.
Yes,
that had called y'all, and y'all just
so
started that.
Blessing with that was they were not. That's what it was. So they were not in foster care. They were not children of the state. They didn't have caseworkers. They didn't, it's just the grandmother brought them home from the hospital, and their biological mother was incarcerated at the time. And so
they were born while she was.
Yeah, and it was a blessing because she was, I think she was about 3 months pregnant when she was put into prison. And so Aaron was actually, they have the same birth mom. And so Aaron actually was born with drugs in his system.
Oh, wow.
And so we had lots of struggles with that when he was first born.
Wow.
and still dealing with some things now, even with him being at, 12 years old. But so anyways, but when we found out that she was put into prison, we were thankful because, she had all the care she needed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She had prenatal care.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, and so I was so thankful for that. And I was like, thank you, Heavenly Father, for taking care of her. And then, but also too, so since they were not in foster care, we could bring them home. And so, and it took longer with the twins than it did with Ava and Aaron. It took a little over 2 years
Okay.
before we were able to adopt them. And we did a private adoption with them as well because they were not in foster care. So that we didn't adopt them through the state like we did with Aaron. And so I was so worried about that because I'm like,
I still don't know why it took so long with the twins.
Because
There's some steps you have to go through, even with a private adoption. You have
it
to
was with the birth mom.
try to find the father and things like that also.
Yeah.
But I thought she was all for it.
Well,
I guess she was backing too, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, she was. But so when I called the caseworker that I had with or actually they had started a file on the twins at the hospital because they thought because of because of Aaron and the previous children, they were thinking that they would probably have to go to foster home.
Right.
And so there was a file started, but when the grandmother took him home, that was it. She fortunately had the file with her. And then, so I called that caseworker. And then I also called the caseworker we had for Ava and Aaron, just because I knew them. And then I also contacted our attorney just to make sure, because I'm like, they have to come home with me,
Right.
I was just like, I can't do the whole back and forth again, And so they were just like, no, you're basically going to be a glorified babysitter, And so they're like, sure, take him home. And I was like, are you sure I can cross state line? Like, no lights are going to be behind my car ready to handcuff me,
Even after we left the court, the lawyers were like, we know the judge told you, but you really shouldn't do this. And we're like, what? The judge just told us we could. And you're going to tell us we can't?
Both of them?
Yeah. The state lawyers.
The state attorneys. Okay.
Right. So, but our attorney was just like, you can take him home. She's like, don't worry about it. We got it. She's like, I'll take care of it. So I was just like, okay, I don't want to get arrested.
I'm sure it's pretty nerve wracking.
Yeah.
I mean, the state attorney saying you shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And so, anyways, we're just kind of like, okay, well, here we go. So we loaded him up and took him over to my brother's house, Bobby and Susie's house. They just lived right down the road. And we were just sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, we have twin girls.
We're a family of 6 now.
I was like, oh my gosh. And so we bathed them and cleaned them up and got some, clothes on them. And
okay, I think I got Aaron's story mixed up with the twin story.
It's okay. It's all right.
We might have to
but it's okay. Like I said,
it all comes out in the wash.
It is hard to go back and think about it because it's just like it didn't even ever, it's like it never happened. It's just so weird. But so we got them home, and like what Barry was saying, why it took so long was because we had found out that while the birth mom was in prison, that she was able, because I don't want to say too much, but because it's just a bittersweet, like I don't have a relationship with her, but I do, and it's like, I don't hate her at all. If anything, I love her with all my heart, but at the same time, it was just, I don't know. It was just hard, but she was, she never had the care that she needed. She lived on the streets.
Right.
She was homeless.
Right.
And so, she just didn't have the care she needed. And so when she was in prison, she had the care that she needed. So she was actually finally diagnosed with a few things. And 2 of the things was being bipolar and schizophrenia.
Gotcha.
And they think it was alcohol induced because she didn't have it. I think it's like around the 20s or something, I think, when it's supposed to happen. I'm not for sure. I'm just kind of trying to remember what our attorney said, but her psychiatrist in prison was pretty sure that that's why, was because of the drugs and alcohol. And so, and there was days where I talked to our attorney and she was just kind of, I wished I knew the psychiatrist personally because I'm wanting to call her all the time, but obviously we couldn't do that. But so I had to go through our attorney and she would get updates from the psychiatrist that she had in prison. And there was days where She remembered all of her kids that she had. I think Molly and Mia were like 9 and 10, that she had 10 kids, not including miscarriages or anything. And
Wow.
so she would remember all of her kids. She could tell you how many she had. And then there was days where she said she didn't have kids,
Wow.
so it was that kind of game
Yeah.
because we had to be really careful. We wanted her to know what she was doing and to be like 100% coherent. Like we did not want to be dishonest in any way and, try to trick her into anything. And so, we wanted her to know that when she signed the papers that she knew she was giving her 2 daughters to us, and so it just, and on top of paperwork and the whole Georgia, Florida thing,
Right.
so that.
Yeah, I remember now. It took her a while to get mentally stable.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the whole trying to get sober and clean in prison, I mean, I don't know what any of that is like, but I mean, it's hard,
Yeah.
so
that's really what took the time was
Mhm.
her being able to get into a place
Yeah.
mentally where she
Right.
could.
And she did. I mean, there was times where, there was one time when we were in court for Aaron because every month they had a hearing, and for Ava, there was one for Ava, for Aaron and the twins. And every time there was a court hearing, I was there.
Right.
And even if I had to take off work, because normally they were during the week, and Barry was able to go to a few of them, but for the most part, I just went down there, and I just sit in the back and just kind of listen, like I was nobody in there, but I just wanted to know what was going
Right.
on. And she, never showed up to any of the hearings for Aaron because, like I said, she didn't have a home, so they didn't know
Right.
how to get in touch with her. She didn't have a phone. Well, there was one time that she was actually in jail, and she had been in there for a few weeks, so she was kind of, clean and coherent and, whatever. And so she was able to show up. And so when I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, she's here, and I was excited, but not excited,
Right.
and I was like, oh my gosh, does she know that I'm here? Does she see me? And so, and like I said, it was for Aaron. And so the judge knew I was there, he knew who I was. And so he had asked her, like, like, do you love your son? And she's like, yes, absolutely. And he was like, well, don't you want to try to get him back? And she was like, yeah. She was like, I do. And he was like, well, let's get you into rehab and let's get you into, all these programs and let's get you, all set up and your ducks in a row to where you can try to get your son back. He's like, wouldn't you want to do that? And she was like, I do. She's like, I don't. And I was like, oh gosh, what
Wow.
is fixing to happen here? And so, she said, she was just like, she said that she was like, I know who I am. She's like, I know the kind of person I am. And she was like, I know that I'm clean now. She was just like, but as soon as you release me, I'm not going to go to rehab. I'm not going to
Wow.
try to do anything. She was like, I know what I'm going to do. And I just sat there in the back and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just started crying. And she turned around and she pointed to me. And so she was like, do you see that woman in the back? And I'm just like sobbing, and he was just like, yes. And he was like, she was like, she has my granddaughter, talking about Ava. And I was like, oh my gosh, she knows who I am, and I figured she just, forgot who I was or
Right.
didn't recognize me because I was little, whenever she left. So she was just like, she was like, she has my granddaughter. She was like, I want my son to be with her and her husband. She was like, they're members of the church. And he asked her what church. And she said, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she said, I want him to be able to go to church every Sunday. I want him to serve a mission. I want him to have, a good place to sleep at night. And she just kept going on and on about the things that she wanted for him. And so I wanted to get up there and just hug her because it was just so like, I just hurt for her because it's like, what mother wants to give their child away? Here I am, I can't get pregnant. And if I had a child, I wouldn't give it away because I want a child so bad, but she just loved him so much. And she knew, like she just knew that she wouldn't be able to give him the best. And so it was just that whole bittersweet, thing. And so I was just like, I really appreciate that. And I wanted to reach out to her so bad, but of course I wasn't allowed to, but I was just like, that's a mother.
Yeah.
That's a mother.
That's
So
that was the exact thoughts that I had, that that she was fulfilling her mother role at that
Right.
time. Loved her children so much. She knew
Right.
what was best for them.
Right.
And she knew that she wasn't best.
Yeah. And it was just,
them,
it was just weird because it's like I wanted to just help her and like take her in and so she can get Aaron back. But at the same time, I was like, I want Aaron.
Right.
So it was just this whole weird, situation.
Inner battle
Yeah,
there,
right.
of emotions for sure. Wow.
Yeah. And I think that situation too, helped down the road with the twins, because that wasn't just an easy adoptions either. There was ups and downs from her mental state to, we didn't know if we were going to have to go through the state, and that would have been a lot harder if she couldn't get mentally capable of signing her rights over.
Right. Okay. Right.
And then there were some other family members that got involved and wanted to adopt the twins. And so we're like, we didn't know if the twins were gonna go to them. So I think the Lord just again had his hands in it, help her, get a clear enough mind where she could choose where her kids were gonna go. We already had, Ava, her granddaughter. We already had her son, Aaron. And then, she was clear enough where she wanted us to have also her twins. So, I mean, there was times, like I said, where yes, we were getting them. No, we weren't. Yes, we were. No, we weren't. So it was really hard again, even though we didn't have to go through all the state stuff.
It was actually pure torture, really,
Right.
for a little over 2 years. It was really hard. So, but there was,
and we could do nothing. I mean, we were just sitting there waiting, not knowing what was going to happen,
Wow.
Yeah. And we had him in our home. I mean, we did everything. It was like all the first tooth coming in and, or like eating rice cereal, so it was like all these fun little milestones and stuff, but they were just obviously not legally ours. And then if they were sick or their doctor's appointments, if they needed shots or anything, I had to go to Florida, so I went back to Florida. I'd pick up the grandmother. We'd go to the doctor because she was still legal guardian. And so she had to go to all the doctor's appointments, anything like that. I was not allowed to do it myself.
Right.
Like I mean, they were on Florida insurance, all that kind of stuff. And so if they had a cough or if they had a runny nose or if they had anything, I was like making a trip to Florida, and so it was a lot, but I mean, it was a lot, but it wasn't, it was just like, they're my kids. I'm going to do whatever I have to do.
Yeah.
So like Barry said, lots of up and downs. It's literally like the best and worst roller coaster ever.
Right.
And so, it's like one of those,
we can kind of compare it to a woman getting pregnant and there's a child on the way and then finding out they're not pregnant. That's how hard it was.
Right. Wow.
Well, I don't know how hard that was, but mentally, that's the only thing I can imagine to
and that's how I felt. I mean, obviously I've never been pregnant before, but it literally was. I mean, and my sister-in-law, Emily, can probably explain that better because she has had natural birth and she's also had a foster kid that for 2 years that they were going to adopt, and then the state pulls the kid. So she could probably, wow. Yeah, they would be good ones to talk to too, because they
how torture it was.
They went through a lot, and not with just one child, but several. But we were at the end of the twins adoption, and like I said, it was like a year and a few months, I think, or 2 years and a few months. It was just a little over 2 years, and we had a setback. So when we first started with the twins, it was like we had to start everything over, and we had to get, one of the things that you have to do is get a background check, make sure we're
Right.
not on the most wanted list
Right.
or terrorist or anything like that. So, it took forever. I mean, it took like probably 7 or 8 months just
Golly.
to get that, and so, well, they expire within a year. And so we didn't know that. And so obviously it took 2 years, a little over 2 years, to get the twins to where their papers were turned over to adoption. And so we were so excited, like talking about having a baby and not, like, it was literally like I was pregnant and we were all getting ready to go, like my water broke or something. We're all
Right.
getting ready to go to the hospital. Like, we were so excited because we were getting ready to go to Florida for the adoption. Everything was set. The date was made. And the van was loaded down, packed, like we were so excited, and we were getting ready to leave the very next day. Well, the day before their adoption, the day before we were supposed to go to Florida, Mary Kay, our attorney, calls me, and she goes, and I see her phone, or her name come up on my phone. I was like, oh my gosh, we're so excited. Like, I didn't give her a chance to say anything.
Right. Wow.
And I'm just like, we're so excited. The van's packed. I was like, oh my gosh. And I start crying. I'm emotional with her. And I was like, thank you so much for everything. And I was just like, we're going to be there, bright and early, blah, blah, blah. And then I finally shut up. And she was just like, and I could just hear her tone.
Right.
And it was almost like she was about to cry. And so I immediately was just like, what is it? And she was like, we have a setback. And I'm like, are you kidding? And so I'm just standing there and my hand just starts shaking, like holding my phone. And she said, we have a problem with your background checkup, your background check. She was like, your fingerprints, they're expired. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, she apologized because she was like, I have no idea how I let this happen. You were supposed to have another background checkup a year ago, and you guys did not get your fingerprints taken. I am so sorry. And of course I didn't hate her or nothing, but
Right.
I was just like, oh my gosh. And so she was like, and then to make matters worse, she said, we have a new judge on the case. She said they just changed to a new judge yesterday. So it was the day before. Well, that same judge that we had for Ava and Aaron was not going to be our judge.
Goodness gracious.
So we had a new judge. And she said, I don't know this judge. She said, I don't know if he's a stickler for, expired fingerprints, or if he doesn't care, if you guys, because she was just saying, like, some judges didn't care. Like, if we didn't have any felonies or any kind of record, they're just like, they're fine. But
So we were possibly looking at another 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
For it to be final.
And so I literally fell on the floor, and I was crying so hard. Like, I was just like, I didn't want to go back to the whole why me thing again, but I was just like, Heavenly Father, I was like, and she was on the phone. Like, I was sobbing out loud, and I was like, are you kidding? And I was like, why is this happening? And so Mary Kay started crying, and she was like, Emily, I'm so sorry. She said, just call me back when you can talk. And so I just cried and I cried and I cried, and Barry wasn't home from work yet. And the kids were so worried about me because I was crying, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And so anyways, I told Barry about it. And then I called Mary Kay back, and I was like, just tell us what we need to do. What do we need to do? I was like, I'll go get fingerprints taken, like, right now. Like, what do we need to do?
I thought it was like everything, not just, I thought it was the whole, approve your home and everything all over again.
Well, they have to do that. Yeah. So it was that too. It was fingerprints. And then once you do the fingerprints, they have to automatically do like another whole, like, home inspection type thing too. And so, so we're just like, this is great. They literally
they come in your house and look and walk your whole house, walk your yard.
I was like, they've been living here for 2 years. I mean, everything's fine, you know? So I was like, they're alive. We're ready to adopt them.
Wow.
And so anyway, so she just said, well, here's the plan. She said, don't worry about it. She said, just come.
Yeah.
She said, just come. She said, there's nothing we can do about it now. Maybe he'll sign off on it. Maybe he won't. If he doesn't, it's fine. You've had him for 2 years. What's another year? And I was like, oh, that's easy for you to say. So we're just like, okay, so here I am devastated, just totally thinking the worst. Like what Barry said, I don't ever think positive. Yeah. And so I think you had to go into work like the next morning for a few hours or something. I just remember you were not home. So I had left to try to get my mind off things. I had fed the kids breakfast. We went and got gas, filled the van up with gas. And while I was at the gas station, I was going to go back home. Barry was going to come and we were going to go to Florida. And so I was at the gas station and my phone rings and I'm like chasing to get it. Cause I'm thinking it's her. Well, it's Barry. And so Barry is like sobbing on the phone. And so I start sobbing and I'm just like, it's bad news. I'm like, it's bad news. Like we can't have it done, cause she told us she was going to call us in the morning just to kind of give us a heads up for whatever. And he was just like, he signed off on the papers. And I start sobbing even more. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And so, definitely a huge miracle,
Wow.
And some people might look at it and say, well, you had the babies already, but until that paperwork is done. At any moment
they can be taken.
It can be like to the day, like how it happened with us. I mean, it can be any circumstance and not just, background check. I mean, it can be coming in and then place them in somebody else's home, know? So, and like Barry said, that's happened to Lance and Emily before. So it was just like,
you probably just felt the weight of the world taken off of your shoulders when that happened.
Yeah. So definitely Heavenly Father was there. I mean, he literally, I don't think I walked through any of this. I think he just kind of
carried
me, rocked me through everything because it was literally every little detail. And there's so many more miracles that happened, but that was a big one for sure.
So so y'all have been sealed?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So when did y'all get a chance to do that?
So probably to me, one of the biggest blessings is being able to have the live sealings. Of course we had just, me and Emily being sealed together. But then we were able to go back and do a live sealing with Ava, sealing Ava to us. And then when Aaron's adoption was final, we went back and we had Ava and Aaron and had Ava. Ava gets to attend when Aaron was sealed to us.
Yeah.
So there, our whole family again is in the temple for the third time. And then when the twins were final, we were able to do 4 live sealings, as a
and it was family. And like when Ava was going to be sealed to us, we actually went down to the temple, just me and Barry by ourselves. I think it was like the weekend or a couple weekends before, and we had scheduled an appointment to meet with the temple president. And so we got to sit with the temple president and ask him a few questions about having someone sealed to us and, like not that we didn't know what it meant, but we just kind of wanted to go over a few things with them and stuff. And so it was so wonderful. It was super awesome to be able to talk to the temple president and him just kind of explain the whole ordinance to us and the blessings and all that kind of stuff. And so we were super ready, so when we went in there with Ava, like we just knew exactly, what to expect.
That's something that I had never thought about before, but missing out on the blessing of being able to have your biological children, but you get to have the blessing of being able to see your children there in the temple and be sealed to you. Whereas like with my wife and I, children being born in the covenant, we've never been able to kneel around the altar with our family like that.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
And it's the same thing. It's just, it's just automatic for you. So we just had to do a little detour.
That's right. But just being able to physically
Right.
be able to see your family and your children,
Yeah.
right there with you being sealed and
Mhm.
everything.
And
But
it's
pretty
And
cool.
I think it's
certainly
really strengthened my testimony of temples,
Right.
because when there's something that special, the spirit is just extra powerful,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
guess. And
yeah,
I
and of
don't know.
course children. Anytime you see children at the temple,
Right, yeah.
it's just
It's
Yeah.
heart melting.
Right.
That's right.
So now every time we go for a sealing, live or not, well, we just went to my brother's, Lance and
Mhm.
Emily's, to have Ryder sealed to them.
Okay.
So it's just that flood of emotion comes
Thinking about it,
back and from those experiences, and it helps. Life's a struggle, and just being able to have those experiences, it gives you
Mhm.
something to fall back on,
Right.
and kind of keep you going.
Absolutely. What would your advice, suggestion, counsel be to couples in a similar, finding themselves in a similar
Mhm.
situation? What would you say to them?
You want to go? You want me to go?
I don't know. I just think there has to be a special bond between a mother and a baby that she's carried for 9 months. All the physical struggles that she has to go through. But I can't imagine loving my kids more than I do now. So to me, there's really not a difference in the love that I have for them, because we've been sealed to them. It's just like we've had them,
Right.
But we didn't just struggle for those 9 months. It took us, like at least 1.5 to 2 years with each one of them, struggles, ups and downs. And I look at that too as a blessing. We had that much longer to kind of bond before they were actually ours.
So
I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did, because I really hadn't even thought about that side of it, but bringing up someone looking at adoption and knowing that biologically they're not yours,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But what you've expressed is that once you take the children in, that completely goes away, and you are, for all intents and purposes, you are your
Mhm.
children's father, and Emily are your children's mother.
Mhm.
And I've actually had a guy at work tell me one time that there's no way I could love my kids as much as he loved his, because we didn't have ours naturally. I'm like,
He said that to you?
yeah.
Wow.
And I don't
And
even know if
that's another
Wow.
podcast of all the
Holy cow.
negative things that,
Yeah.
we've had lots of positive things, but there's been lots of negative things too.
And I mean, I didn't even try to answer him. I just told him, I was like, they're
You just
mine.
punched him?
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Right.
Seriously.
But I was like, they're mine. And he would say, but you didn't birth them. I was like, they're mine.
Golly.
It's ridiculous. What?
Wow.
Mhm.
But yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. For sure. So what would you have to say?
So, just going back to the beginning, like how I said, I had that whole pity party, I think it's important to have those feelings, to express your feelings or whatever. But I just feel like it's so important to not get to that point, like to not let your heart harden, to try everything you can to keep it soft, because it's already devastating enough, not being able to have a child naturally, and it just killed me, but then not being able to have love for others, is on top of that is worse,
Right, just kind of piling on.
it's just piling on. And I would just say, if you can just hang on, just find something. Like I found that book, like I said, by Sherry, and that helped me. It's just trying to find something that you can hang on to, to be able to bring you out of that. And if you have nieces and nephews, to mother them. And if you don't have nieces and nephews, mother the children in church,
Right.
like just say, I will babysit your kids this weekend for free, so it's like just trying to find a way to mother and to be a mother,
Right.
and to just be open to anything. And even if they don't have the chance to adopt, because I mean, I've heard stories where it's the same kind of situation as us and they want to adopt, but they can't adopt, or it takes too long, or it's too expensive, or, something like that. They don't have the financial means to do it, or, they don't want to do the fostering process. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there to still keep someone from not having children.
Right.
And I know people that still don't have children, and then, and then it's like I'm on, it's like I look at people that have their children naturally. Well, I don't do that anymore, but back then, and then, then I had a pity party. Well, then now it's like I have kids. And then even though I adopted them, but I still feel bad for those that don't have kids still, and so it's just like, I don't know how to explain that, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just kind of like, it just goes in a circle. And so it's just not to give up, just not to give up, and to, just know that there's something in store for you. If not this life, the next, it's just, it's gonna happen. And I wouldn't want to lose the gospel. Like I just wouldn't want to not have the gospel in my life, so, and I see that happening with others, so it's just trying to not get in that place. And even if you do, it's fine. It's just, don't stay there.
No, yeah, right.
Don't stay there forever. Like you gotta
get out.
you gotta find a way to get out, even though it's going to be so hard. But we can do hard things,
right.
So I mean, but it is so crazy, because like I posted a thing on Facebook not too long ago where, I get like the time hop on Facebook, memories and stuff, and I'm just like, and I, had one from one of the kids' adoptions. I can't remember. We took a picture with the judge and the attorney, and it's literally like a dream.
Right.
Like it's like, it did not happen. Like, I don't want to push under the rug everything that we went through, because we learned so much from it. But it's like, I just totally feel like I just gave birth to my kids.
Right.
Like,
That's right. Yeah.
And so, and other people feel like that too. Like my friend Sally, she's just kind of like, I never think of you adopting kids. She's like, when you show up to my house with your kids, it's like, I mean, of course there are kids, but and then a funny story was, our niece Maggie, Barry's brother, sister Mandy and Marcus, they had, which Marcus is on Saints of the South. Okay, so same Marcus. So anyways, but their daughter, Maggie, I think she's like a year older than Ava. And I was given a talk in sacrament one day, and and it wasn't about adoption, but I had just kind of told a little story about adopting Ava. I don't even know what I said, honestly. It was just something, I said the words adoption and Ava. And so Maggie had come up to me and right after sacrament, and she was like, Aunt Emily, she was like, Ava's adopted, and I was just like, yes, but she was the same age as Ava. So, I mean, she really wouldn't know, because she was a baby the same time Ava was, and she thought, I think she thought Aaron was ours too. Like, she didn't think Aaron was, she knew the twins, but I was just like, oh my gosh. And then, just people in town, like, at work, just the other day, Aaron had to get a sports physical, and one of the girls I work with, she was just like, your kids are so beautiful, and, just saying different things, and I was like, I know you. I was like, you wouldn't be able to tell that, I didn't birth them, because people say how much they look so much like us,
Yeah.
And she looks at me and like, what, and she was like, what do you mean you didn't birth them? And I was like, they're adopted. And she's like, are you kidding? So it's just, it's really just
That's
neat
right.
just
Wow.
how it all, and so like when I think back on it, it's like I'm thankful we went through it and I know we went through it, but it's such a haze at
Yeah.
some point too, you know.
Yeah. So again, so when I see your family, I don't think, well, there's Barry and Emily and the adopted children.
Yeah, right.
It's just
Yeah.
there's the Bennett family.
Right,
It's just
right.
natural. It all works.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one other question was, as far as from the
Mhm.
children's point of view,
Right.
they all know that they're
Oh yes.
adopted and everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they all know they're adopted. We
Yeah.
did not keep that from
Right,
them
okay.
at
Yeah,
all.
just the thought of, you see the TV shows and the kid
Yeah.
finds out they're adopted
right.
when they're like,
Yeah.
when they're like 16 or
Right,
18,
yeah.
fixing to leave. I'm like,
Yeah.
And we had
how
actually-
terrible would that be?
Yeah, we
Right.
actually learned that too in our foster classes that we were taking. They didn't tell us that we had to tell,
right,
but they just suggested that it would be good because, they work with the kids in the, system. They're just like, it's always not a good thing,
Well,
Yeah,
we
just
we
emotional.
never wanted it to be an issue because it's not an issue.
Right.
We didn't want to create an issue
Right.
that wasn't
Yeah.
there.
And we wanted them to know, if they had any kind of doubt, like we wouldn't, give them any doubt or anything, but if they had any kind of doubt, like we wanted them to feel free to ask us and talk to us. And they have, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, they've
so-
asked so many questions,
Wow.
but
So they've just always known from
Yeah.
the time
As
they
long as
started,
they could communicate
starting to
back and forth,
understand,
yeah.
we would talk to them a little bit, and then as they would have questions, we would just tell them more and more.
yeah.
And
Very
And,
good.
explain
Sounds
more.
like
with Ava, I think it was like maybe 7, 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere around there, she started kind of asking some questions. And then, and we were very limited at first, because we kind of wanted to protect them. Like we didn't want them to know the whole truth about their biological parents or anything. And we never even found out the biological fathers. Honestly,
Okay.
we with any of our kids, we don't know who the fathers are. We just know the 2 biological mothers. And so we didn't want any surprises, and Ava started asking questions. And so we would tell her a few things. And there's some things, that we didn't tell her at first. And now she knows everything. I mean, she's like I said, she'll be 14 in a few months. And we just felt like she could know everything. And so then Aaron started about the same age. And then it was the same thing. We didn't give him everything, but now he knows everything. And so now the twins, they'll be 10 in December. And they have started asking questions and everything, and they know, and also too, they're all different races,
Right. Okay.
and so Ava and Aaron are half Mexican, and Molly and me are biracial, and so
And Emily is half Cuban.
and Barry's redneck.
Right.
Half
Hey, we got them all.
But anyway, so we didn't want them, like kids from school say anything to them, like pointing it out or anything like that, because they just think they look like us, but from outside looking in, people could tell, and so, and I've had lots of negative comments about that, just strangers in Walmart, saying stuff to me and about my children and the way they looked and who the dads were. And it's just crazy. So I knew if it happened to me, it was going to happen to them. So we definitely wanted them to be aware and let them know. And so, anyways, they've all handled it. Molly and me are very comical. And so they just did not believe us for a good while that they were biracial. And, but they believe us now,
Okay.
so, but they ask questions and they're totally fine with it. I think the only one I think that struggled with it a little bit and still is Aaron.
Okay.
And he I don't know why, but we're actually in the middle of trying to help him understand all that. He's very, not that he is, he's happy where he is, but he's just still has a lot.
Just he's his own individual, and he's
Right.
just trailblazing
Yeah.
his path.
Mhm.
Everybody's different in how they
Yeah.
handle things, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Just, I guess he's at that age where he's starting to,
recognize a lot more.
Right.
And, yeah.
Mhm.
you know, I can't imagine, you know, just knowing that another lady birthed me, but she
Right.
didn't want me or wasn't able to keep me, or
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're
just having to go
probably
through that.
going way too far, but that made me think of something too. I didn't even think about till just now, but you know, we're Barry and I, we were just so thankful and excited and happy to have the opportunity to adopt these children and to have them as our babies and have them forever. And we just think it's, you know, glorious and great and, you know, all the bells and whistles, but I never stopped to think what they thought, you know. And
Right.
so I'm just thinking they're all happy go lucky too, you know. And so Ava had to write an essay one day in school, and it was I think it was this year, or it might have been last year. I think it was last year. And she had me read it, and I was devastated. And it wasn't bad, but she talked about her being adopted. And she said that she had felt ashamed that she, you know,
Wow.
and that's literally the only word that I can remember from that whole essay. And it broke my heart because I'm like, she's my baby. Like I mean, all my children healed me, but I was like, she's my healer. She's the one.
Right.
And I'm like, how can she feel that way? You know? And I just cried and I sat in the bed with her because I just didn't want her to feel that way. You know, I was just like, I just asked her, I was like, why, you know, please explain to me. I was like, you're not in trouble. I'm not mad at you. I said, just help mama understand, because I'm over here just so thrilled, you know, that you're my daughter. And I know you love me and I know you consider me as your mom, but I'm like, just explain to me why, you know, you feel ashamed. And so we just had, you know, a good conversation, but it was just like a little teaching moment from my daughter because, you know, I was just like, I couldn't imagine, just like what Barry said, like if I had a mother that had problems or issues that, you know, whether she didn't want me or she just couldn't take care of me and the state took me, you know, just anything like that, like how would that make me feel? I never once stopped to put myself in her shoes. And that was a very important teaching moment for me. And that just happened last year,
Right.
you know? So, I mean, that was like, oh my gosh. And then I was just like, I am so sorry. And I just asked her to forgive me because I was just like, I just need to do better. You know, I just need to be a better mom. And then she was like, no, you're a great mom. It's not that, you know, and
Yeah, we kind of touched on it already about how hateful and mean people are. And,
mhm,
you know, the world's point of view is not the same as our point of view.
right. And
You know,
that's where it
people
stemmed
look
from.
down on, you know,
Right.
That's where it stemmed from, because I had asked her
any,
where it had come from, and she said it was from school. And Aaron had also experienced the same thing, and that was just recent. He literally we just talked about it, and I thought, and I'm glad we talked about it now because I was like, oh, I can bring that up, you know, talking with you, because he asked me one day, on the way home from school, and he was just kind of mad. I could tell he was mad. And I was like, did you get a bad grade? You know, what's kind of going on? And he looked at me, he was like, I mean, he was like, is adoption bad? Like that to me. And I was like, no. I was like, why? You know, I was like, what's going on? And I was like, who said that? Give me their
That's right.
name.
That's right.
I'm going up there. You know, I was like, I'll turn the van around.
Mama
You know?
Bear's coming out.
And so, anyways, I mean, I didn't do that, and I didn't find out who said it or anything like that. But a kid at school had told him, like, gosh, you're adopted, you know, like made it such a bad thing. And so he just said that he just hated telling people he was adopted. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know. So Aaron was experiencing the same thing Ava did. And so I didn't even have to handle it. Ava did. I mean, because she had already experienced it. And Ava was like, you tell them this and you tell them that, you know?
Good for her.
And so, but I think Aaron is just struggling with it a little more. I mean, Ava was able to let it roll off her back, and Aaron is just kind of sitting there on his shoulders a little bit. It's a little burden for him, but.
And really, if you look at, you know, what we're studying now with the Come Follow Me and how the church and members struggled with life. I mean, we all go through that same not
Mhm.
to the point of what they had to go through.
Right.
But we all go through our certain little things, and just how we respond to those
That's
things.
right.
And
Yep.
Mhm.
that's something that they're going to have to deal with, people saying mean things and hateful things, and just
Yeah.
learning from it and growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know kids can be mean.
Yeah.
People in general can be mean, but I think y'all have approached it the best way, and that's including them in that conversation
Mhm.
from the very get-go,
Right.
versus all of a sudden discovering something when they're 16, 17
Yeah.
years old,
Right.
and having all that come crashing down at once.
Right.
That would be
And it is, and
I
what they're
couldn't
already
imagine.
experiencing now with, kids at school, then on top of find out they were adopted. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
ruined their life, and I mean, I'm not trying to say anything against people that are out there that haven't told their kids they're adopted. I mean, it's whatever you see fit. It's just what we saw in our situation, and with them being at such a young age,
Yeah.
it was just easier for us to just say, listen, you're adopted.
Right.
And but anyway, so it just worked out. Because I mean, I know there's some people out there that probably don't want to tell their kids.
Yeah, and we try to teach them like the eternal perspective. It's
Mhm.
Right.
it's no difference. I mean, we're sealed together as a family forever.
Right.
It doesn't matter that.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We all go back to Adam and Eve eventually, right?
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love my babies, and I don't care. It used to bother me when people would say things to me and stuff and in public and all, but
It still does.
no, it doesn't bother me anymore. I had a lady tell me one time, this is funny. This was not bad. Well, it was kind of bad, but she told me, I had all the kids with me, and they were a little, anyway, so we were in Walmart, I think it was, and she was just watching me with the kids and whatever, and they were just kind of playing around, probably being loud and everything. And she comes up, and she was a little old lady,
Right, okay,
I mean, bless her. And
they lack filters.
Yes,
Anyway.
I mean, it's just, and she was talking to the kids and telling them that they better straighten up and this and that. And she wasn't ugly, but I was just like, I'll just let her do her thing. It's no big deal. And so she was just like, are these all your kids? And I was like, yes, ma'am, they sure are. And she was like, I knew it. And she's like, you want me to tell you how I knew it? And I was like, sure. I was just like, go ahead. She was like, you got them birthing hips.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, that's right. That is right. I was like, I do. I never told her they're adopted,
Right.
but I just let her have that little moment. But so I get all kinds of stuff, and I still do, but it's just in the beginning it used to bother me, but now I just go right with it. I'm just like,
Wow.
them birthing hips.
Yeah,
that's right.
Born with them things.
It was so funny. I was just like, thanks a lot.
Well, Barry and Emily, thank y'all so much for coming in and
Yeah,
sharing
no
your story with us and everything. So I think a lot of people will be affected from it. I know there was a lot of details that I wasn't aware of. Obviously, saw the process from the outside and everything, but there were a lot of things that wasn't aware of, and it's uplifted me. So appreciate
thank
that.
you.
And stuff,
Well,
so.
Hopefully everyone can kind of understand the timeline, because we kind of jumped back into
Right,
Yes.
right.
maybe got a few stories mixed up.
I know. Well,
In the end, you got 4 kids.
yeah. In the end, we have 4 kids.
That's right. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Barry and Emily, y'all keep on striving,
Yes. Thanks.
and y'all
Thank
too.
you.